said take your time. He said go until 45. So
47 तक वो बोले आने को. हाँ यही रास्ते में स्लो जाओ
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. عن جابر بن عبد الله الأنصاري عن فاطمة الزهراء عليها السلام بنت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله قال سمعت فاطمة أنها كانت دخل علي أبي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله في بعض الأيام فقال السلام عليك يا فاطمة فقلت وعليك السلام قال إني أجد في بدني زوفا فقلت له أعيذك بالله يا أباته من الزوف فقال يا فاطمة ائتيني بالكساء اليماني فغطيني به فأتيته بالكساء اليماني فغطيته به وسرت أنظر إليه وإذا وجهه يطلع له كأنه البدر في ليلة تمامه وكماله فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسن قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أماه فقلت وعليك السلام يا قرة عيني وثمرات فؤادي فقال يا أماه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها راية جدي رسول الله فقلت نعم إن جدك تحت الكساء فأقبل الحسن نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جداه يا رسول الله أتأذن لي أن أدخل معك تحت الكساء فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا صاحب حوزي قد أذنت لك فدخل معه تحت الكساء فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسين قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أمه فقلت وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا قرة عيني وثمرات فؤادي فقال لي يا أماه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها راحية جدي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله فقلت نعم إن جدك وأخاك تحت الكساء فدعا الحسين نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جدا السلام عليك يا من اختار الله أتأذن لي أن أكون معكما تحت الكساء فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا شافع أمتي قد أذنت لك فدخل معهما تحت الكساء فأقبل عند ذلك أبو الحسن علي بن أبي طالب وقال السلام عليك يا بنت رسول الله فقلت وعليك السلام يا أبا الحسن ويا أمير المؤمنين فقال يا فاطمة إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة أخي وابن عمي رسول الله فقلت نعم ها هو ما ولديك تحت الكساء فأقبل علي نحو الكساء
وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال له وعليك السلام يا أخي ويا وسيي وخليفتي وصاحب اللواء. قد أذنت لك فدخل علي تحت الكساء. ثم أتيت نحو الكساء وقلت السلام عليك يا أباته يا رسول الله أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال وعليك السلام يا بنتي ويا بزعتي قد أذنت لك فدخلت تحت الكساء. فلما اكتملنا جميعا تحت الكساء أخذ أبي رسول الله بتر في الكساء وأومى بيده اليمنى إلى السماء وقال اللهم إن هؤلاء أهل بيتي وخاصتي وهامتي لحمهم لحمي ودمهم دمي يهلموني ما يهلموهم ويحزنوني ما يحزنوهم. أنا حرب لمن حاربهم وسلم لمن صالمهم وعدو لمن عاداهم ومحب لمن أحبهم إنهم مني وأنا منهم. فاجعل صلواتك وبركاتك ورحمتك وغفرانك ورضوانك علي وعليهم وأذهب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. فقال الله عز وجل يا ملائكتي ويا سكان السماوات إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدهية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مزية ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا في محبة هؤلاء الخمسة الذين هم تحت الكساء. فقال الأمين جبرائيل يا ربي ومن تحت الكساء؟ فقال عز وجل هم أهل بيتي نبوتي ومعدن الرسالة هم فاطمة وأبوها وبعلها وبنوها. فقال جبرائيل يا ربي أتأذن لي أن أهبط إلى الأرض ليكون معهم سادسا؟ فقال الله نعم قد أذنت لك. فهبط الأمين جبرائيل وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله العلي الأعلى يقرئك السلام ويخصك بالتحية والإكرام ويقول لك وعزتي وجلالي إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدهية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضية ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا لأجلكم ومحبتكم. وقد أذن لي أن أدخل معكم فهل تأذن لي يا رسول الله؟ فقال رسول الله وعليك السلام يا أمين وحي الله إنه نعم قد أذنت لك. فدخل جبرائيل معنا تحت الكساء فقال لأبي إن الله قد أوحى إليكم يقول إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. فقال علي لأبي يا رسول الله أخبرني ما لجلوسنا هذا تحت الكساء من الفضل عند الله. فقال النبي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا إلا ونزلت إليهم الرحمة وحفت بهم الملائكة واستغفرت لهم إلى أن يتفرقوا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا إلا ونزلت إليهم الرحمة وحفت بهم الملائكة واستغفرت لهم إلى أن يتفرقوا فقال علي إذن والله فزنا وفزع شيعتنا وربي الكعبة فقال النبي ثانيا يا علي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا وفيه مهموم الله وفرج الله عما ولا مغموم إلا وكشف الله غما ولا طالب حاجة إلا وكذا الله حاجته فقال علي إذن والله فزنا وسودنا وكذلك شيعتنا فازوا وسودوا في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة فاتحة.
Mu'minin Maulana Sahab, well, on the way from Allentown, Pennsylvania, Sheikh Bilal Hussain, he just got delayed a little bit in the traffic. He said he'll be here in about 3 minutes. So we'll just start Azan in a couple of minutes and then we'll wait for him. We'll get Jamaat this way.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما
اس کو کل بھی تو جمعرات عارف رہنے دو اس کو, کل جمعرات ہے نا, کل بھی چاہیے ہوگا. ہاں رہنے دو, کل جمعرات ہے.
کل یہاں جائیں گے, پہنچ جائیں گے, بیٹھ جائیں گے والد صاحب, بیٹھ جائیں.
آ جاؤ.
درود پڑھ دیں محمد وعلی محمد. سلام کے دو شعر بس. مجلس شہ میں میرا برسرے ممبر ہونا, مجلس شہ میں میرا برسرے ممبر ہونا, اس کو کہتے ہیں نصیب کا سکندر ہونا. مجلس شہ میں میرا برسرے ممبر ہونا. پہلے سوئے تو کوئی چھاؤں میں تلوار روکے, اتنا آسان تو نہیں نفس پیمبر ہونا. مجلس شہ میں میرا برسرے غم شبیر نے اشکوں کی بڑھا دی قیمت, غم شبیر نے اشکوں کی بڑھا دی قیمت, قطرہ آب کو دکھلا دیا کوثر ہونا. مجلس شہ میں میرا برسرے ممبر ہونا. مجلس شہ میں میرا. سورہ فاتحہ. ٹائم نہیں تھا. حضرت مسلم کی شہادت کے مرثی کے چند بند ہیں. جب کوفیوں نے کوفے میں مسلم سے دغا کی, جب کوفیوں نے کوفے میں مسلم سے دغا کی, جو عہد کیا ایک نے اس پر نا وفا کی, شرم خدا سے نہ محمد سے حیا کی, رے مظلوم پہ بے کس پہ مسافر پہ جفا کی, مظلوم پہ بے کس پہ مسافر پہ جفا کی, پانی نہ دم مرگ دیا تشنا دہن, کس ظلم سے ٹکڑے کیا آوارہ وطن, جانے کی کہیں راہ نہ تھی بند تھے راستے, کوفی چلے آتے تھے کمر ظلم پہ کستے, گھیرے تھے سواران ستمگاہ کے راستے, تھے
نیچے یہ اور کوٹھوں سے پتھر تھے برستے جب وار نہ چل سکتا تھا اس شیر ضیا پر انگارے لئی پھینکتے تھے سوختہ جان نرغا ہوا اس شہ کا ہراول پہ یکائے تلوار سے کٹ کر گر لب ہائے مبارک پہلو پہ لگی برچھیاں اور چھاتی پہ ناب دنداں بھی شکستہ ہوئے پتھر چلے یاد آلودہ تھی سب ریشے مبارک جو لہو چھاتی پہ ٹپکتا تھا لہو ہر بن منہ چھاتی پہ ٹپکتا تھا لہو ہر بن جب غش میں گرا خاک پہ وہ بے کس و ناچار نے کیا مسلم بے کس کو گرفتار اس زخمی کے بازو میں رسیں باندھ کے کوٹھے پہ جدا کرنے کو سیلے گئے کو 100 ٹکڑے محمد کا ہوا دل بھیجے گئے مارا گیا مسلم بھی ہوئے قتل پہ سر قاصد کوئی نامہ تھا جو مسلم کا نہ لایا تشویش میں تھا حیدر کرار کا جایا ناگاہ اسے ایک مرد مسافر نظر آیا بھجوا کے کسی کو اسے حضرت نے بلایا تسلیم کی اس شخص نے جھک کر چاہے دے نالین مبارک پہ لگا ملنے جبے بیٹھی ہے کہاں دختر مسلم کو تو لاؤ جلدی اسے لا کر میری چھاتی سے لگا رو کر کہا کلثوم سے زینب نے کہ جاؤ کبرا و سکینہ کے مصاحب کو بلاؤ دیکھو کہیں یہاں ہوگی کہ وہاں ہوگے سکینہ وہ بھی وہیں ہوے گی جہاں ہوگی سکینہ یہ سنتے ہی کلثوم بلانے کو چلے تھے جو سامنے کبرا و سکینہ نظر آئی تھی ساتھ ہی ان دونوں کے مسلم کی بھی بیٹی حضرت کے قریب آ کے بدستور وہ بیٹھی یوں پیار تو کرتے تھے لپٹی تھی جب اس روز بہت پیار کیا چھاتی لگا اس روز بہت پیار کیا چھاتی لگا ارے انداز مجھے آج وہی ہے نظر جس طرح یتیموں پہ کوئی رحم ہے کھاتا ارے اس پیار پہ دل ہے میرا ٹکڑے ہوا جاتا ارے کچھ تو ہے کہ دل سینے میں تسکین نہیں پاتا کچھ تو ہے کہ دل سینے میں تسکین نہیں پاتا کوفے سے بڑی دور سفر کر گئے باپ کیوں آپ نہیں کہتے ہیں کیا مر گئے کیوں آپ نہیں کہتے क्या मर गए बाप जब कूफियों ने कूफे में मुस्लिम से दगा की
Mu'mineen, Assalamu alaikum. Just recognizing tonight's Majlis sponsors, that is the family of Nakhi Nahwi. We are very thankful for their participation, and may Allah shower His blessings upon the family in this life and the life hereafter. Ameen. Tomorrow being Thursday, we will have our regular Shab-e-Jummah program, 8:15 p.m. That program is sponsored by the families of Kashif Jafari, Nabil Nahwi, Arif Jafari, and Aftab Jafari. So please join for that program, 8:15 p.m. tomorrow night. And then Friday will be the day of Eid al-Adha, so we will have Eid Salat here at 9:30 a.m. That is Friday, June 6th at 9:30 a.m. And then a final reminder that next Saturday, June 14th, will be the day of Eid al-Ghadir. So we will have an Amal program in the morning. More details will follow by email. But we will also have the grand Jashan in the evening at 6 p.m., where we will have a Mankhibat program followed by an English speech. So please join in that program. More details will be sent out by email and by WhatsApp. And without any further delay, I'd like to humbly invite Sheikh Bilal Hussain to continue with tonight's majlis. Please welcome him with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Before we begin, we'll mention the names of the marhumin of tonight's sponsors to include them in Surah Fatiha and 3 times Surah Ikhlas. For Khadija Begum, Khanum Sultan, Asadullah Khan Naqvi, Jafar Ali Razvi, 1 Surah Fatiha, 3 times Ikhlas. Bismillah. Bismillah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي الحمد لله رب العالمين ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين واللعنة على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين أما بعد فقد قال الله تعالى في محكم كتابه الحكيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم من المؤمنين رجال صدقوا ما آحدوا الله عليه فمنهم من قضى نحبه ومنهم من ينتظر وما بدلوا تبديلا آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم. Your second salawat for love of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And your loudest salawat for ta'ajil faraj sahib al-asr wa zaman. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa أعظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بذكر المسائب آل Muhammad. May Allah increase in our reward for commemorating the difficulties of Ahlul Bayt. The verse of Quran we began with is the verse in which Allah describes and says, from amongst the believers are men who have made oaths to Allah, and there are those amongst them who have fulfilled their oaths, and there are those who are still waiting, and there is no difference between any of them. One of the appropriate interpretations of this verse applies to the example of the personality we discussed tonight, Muslim Ibne Aqeel. That while his Shahadat is one that takes place in Kufa before the advent of Muharram, He is truly one of the Shuhada of Karbala for the oath that he made to Imam Hussain in terms of the loyalty and fealty, and to support him through every instance possible. And that whether he became early or later, he fulfilled his oath the same way that Allah describes, مِنْهُمْ مَنْ قَضَى نَحْبَهُ وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ يَنْتَظِرُ. On the Shahadat of Muslim, he is one who has fulfilled his oath to Abu Abdullah, and there are others who are waiting to fulfill their oath. وَمَا بَدِّلُوا تَبْدِيلًا. There is no difference between any of them. Which is why there are actually some very important similarities that come between the Shahadat of Muslim and the Shahadat of Imam Hussain and the Shuhada of Karbala. But to understand this and the status of this Muslim Ibne Aqeel, there's a short discussion on who is Muslim Ibne Aqeel. And tonight we'll discuss a little bit about his biography and understand who this person was and what his relationship to Ahlul Bayt is. With your loudest of salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Muslim Ibn Aqeel, while is the first cousin of Amir al-Mu'mineen, that the fathers are brother Aqeel, we know, and Amir al-Mu'mineen, we know that they are first cousins, there is more relation between them as well. But even from the birth of Muslim Ibn Aqeel, there's a very interesting narration that describes his birth as well too. Famously, there's a hadith that's narrated that narrates and says that Aqeel bin Abi Talib went to Sham in the door of Muawiyah and asked Muawiyah that there is a jariyah, a slave girl who I want to buy, but she costs 40,000. Muawiyah, give me 40,000 dinar of gold. Narration continues that Muawiyah turns to Aqeel and makes fun of him and says, Aqeel, you're blind. It doesn't matter if she's worth 40,000 or 500. You can't see her anyway. Why do you care? Aqeel says, no, I want 40,000 from you. And Muawiyah says, what will you do? And why do you want to spend 40,000 on purchasing this girl? He says, I want to have a child. وَإِذَا غَضَبَكَ فَضَرَبَ عُنَقَكَ. I want to have a child, and that child will be one that when he becomes angry with you, he will strike your neck. And he will kill you. Muawiyah laughs at this and says, I give you the money, go. And supposedly Muawiyah gives him 40,000 dinar. The narration continues to say that sometime later, when Muslim Ibn Aqeel had matured, there was a piece of land that he wanted to sell in Medina, and that he went to Sham again to go see Muawiyah and say, Muawiyah, there's land I want to sell in Medina, will you buy it from me? And Muawiyah says, sure, I'll buy it from you. How much do you want for it? He says, I want 100,000 dinar. He says, 100,000 dinar. He says, okay, I buy it from you. Muslim Ibn Aqeel sells this land to Muawiyah, and when he returns back to Medina after the sale, Imam Hussain hears about this transaction, becomes upset, and says, this is not right, this is not fair, and writes a letter to Muawiyah that you have done ghubun, you've misleaded my cousin, I want you to cancel this sale. And Muslim Ibn Aqeel returns to the city of Sham with this letter and hands it to Muawiyah and says, undo the sale. Muawiyah says, the sale was fine, it was fair, it was equitable. What are you going to do if I don't do it? Because there's no reason for me to undo this sale simply because you brought me this letter. Muslim says, I'll kill you for it. And Muawiyah laughs and he says, I remember the words of your father. And he said to me that I want to have a son that when he becomes angry with you, he'll kill you, he'll strike your neck. So Muawiyah says, you know what, I'll undo it, and not only will I undo it, I'll give you the money and the land, take everything, I don't want anything from you. And that after this, Imam Hussain sends him a letter and says that we have found generosity and forbearance in Muawiyah, and thank you for this. This whole story is a lie. Why? Well, the fundamentals of some of these issues in the story don't make sense. One, the timing of the birth of Muslim Ibn Aqeel. According to this narration and story, he would be born roughly in the year 30 after Hijrah, when Muawiyah had taken authority, and that would make him at the time of his Shahadat less than 30 years of age, about 29, 30 years of age. And this doesn't add up correctly. And then secondly, that it goes against some of the attributes of both the Ahlul Bayt and this Muslim that we know. I'll give you an explanation. Aqeel was not a normal person. Why? Because when Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam was looking for a marriage. He goes to Aqeel and he says, Aqeel, you are the knower of lineages of the Arab. I want to marry from a brave family that will give me brave sons. Amir al-Mu'mineen is asking Aqeel ibn Abi Talib, his brother, that show me lineages of khair and goodness, and show me lineages that have the authority to give me a son like Abbas. There's a few reasons why Amir al-Mu'mineen does this. It's not that Amir al-Mu'mineen, the one who would say, Saluni, Saluni, qabla an tafqiduni, ask me before you lose me, doesn't know. But the attribute is to teach the significance of looking at where and how you get married, that when you get married, look at more than what's in front of you. Our Prophet would say, تُخَيِّرُ لِنُطْفِكُمْ لِأَنَّ الْإِرْقَ دَسَّاسٌ. Be careful where you go and have children, because certainly the lineages and genealogy plays in effect. Amir al-Mu'mineen is teaching this in a practical example, and Amir al-Mu'mineen, if he is going to someone, he's taking family counsel, and he's taking it from someone who is knowledgeable in the arena. Now understand and say something, that if Amir al-Mu'mineen is seeking the counsel of Aqeel in which family to get married, does that mean that Aqeel himself doesn't know where he should get married? He doesn't know better than where his lineage should come from? And the description of where the lineage of Muslim is coming from doesn't make any sense in that regard. Rather, what we take a look at is that the birth of Muslim ibn Aqeel is something that mu'arrikheen generally agree upon as referring to him as one of those who was born during the dawr of Rasulullah, and refer to him either as from the companions of Rasulullah or the tabi'een. Now, let me explain. When we want to know the reality of history, history itself can be written by many people. This hadith that I mentioned for you about the birth and the connection to Muawiyah is maj'ul, is made up by Banu Umayyah to show the karamat, the generosity, the good qualities that Banu Umayyah possessed, that they took the authority over the Muslimin. Once they took the authority of the Khilafah, they had to explain why. Why do we deserve the Khilafah that no one else does? So stories like this were made. And the way that you can tell it was made is that when you compare it with the history of Rijal and the history of knowing the personalities amongst the Arab, which is something they took pride in, you find disconnects. And the disconnect that you find in this story is that in books of Rijal about Muslim ibn Aqeel is written that إِمَّا هُوَ كَانَ مِنَ الْأَصْحَابِ الرَّسُولِ أو كَانَ مِنَ التَّابِعِينَ. Ashab al-Rasul means that he was alive and took influence by the words of the Prophet, which would put his birth at the earliest at 3 Hijrah. Tabi'een would put him, Tabi'een were those people who weren't in the company of the Prophet, but were in the company and raised in the company of the Sahaba, those who followed and were the followers of the Sahaba, which would put his birth in the life or at the end of the life of the Holy Prophet, which refers to approximately 7 or 8 after Hijrah, if it's in the life of the Prophet, or 11 or 12 after Hijrah in that time. This entire discussion and description tells us that the birth of Muslim had to be earlier than 30, otherwise he wouldn't qualify amongst the Tabi'een, he would be too late in his birth process. And therefore the hadith itself belies the origin of where Muslim came from. Rather, when we take a look and we see that the mother of Muslim ibn Aqeel was a lady by the name of Ulayya. Ulayya happened to be somebody from the region of Ambat, which was one of the kingdoms in Africa. And that there were many who came from the kingdoms of Africa, whether we take a look at Maria Qabtiya, whether we look at, for example, the Nubians who were married, whether we take a look at the others that were married to the Ahlul Bayt, that it was not uncommon that those of noble households and piety would be found from the African nations, and that they would be wives and married into the Banu Hashim. And thus we find that it's most likely that this Ulayya, who was the mother, was somebody who had a noble and good characteristic, because Aqeel himself knew how to find a good lineage and a good characteristic of where he should have his children. This description puts the age of Hazrat Muslim ibn Aqeel approximately about the age of about 57 at the time of his Shahadat, or a little over 60 at that time, or 53 at that time. One of the discussions that happens is, why don't we hear much about the life of Muslim ibn Aqeel before the Waqi'ah of Karbala? There's 2 reasons for this. One is to say that young men are not often written about in history. And as a child and a young man, you're not going to hear much about common people or people until they become old in age and that they develop certain characteristics or abilities. The second and more significant aspect is that if you're raised in the household in the company of Ahlul Bayt, and you are raised in the company of Imam Hussain, Imam Hassan, Amir al-Mu'mineen, that they are the luminaries that outshine all those around them. That this statement to say that we don't hear much about him doesn't mean he doesn't possess nobility. Rather, it means that those around him were greater signs of nobility that were mentioned more frequently. The proof of this is given in what Imam Hussain describes about Muslim ibn Aqeel when he sends him to Kufa. Prior to this, though, there is another incident that's associated with his life that refers to the Battle of Siffin. Some historians have noted and said that Kana Shuja'an, that he was someone who was very brave and known for his bravery. When they asked, how do you prove this? Some said, oh, he fought in the campaigns to conquer Africa, and he went there to fight. This, we find that most of the Banu Hashim, you don't find that these narrations that refer to them fighting in the conquest of the Khulafa to be authentic. Some even go so far as to say that our second and third Imam fought in the conquests of conquering these lands of Azerbaijan and other places. They don't put any weight in those. That is a way that people tried to say that yes, the Ahlul Bayt, though they may have been upset about losing authority, appreciated the actions of the Khulafa and participated. We don't buy that. Rather, the Shuja'at of Muslim ibn Aqeel is shown in the Battle of Siffin. In the Battle of Siffin, it's narrated to say that Imam Ali gave out 12 flags and put 12 leaders of the army in place. Reason being that the army of Siffin was much larger than any army that had been before, and one of these flags was given to Muslim ibn Aqeel to lead a section of the army. And this was one of the demonstrations of his bravery and his shuja'at. But his true status and his personality is shown to us when Imam Hussain sends him to Kufa. How? First and foremost, to understand something. Imam Hussain, when he leaves Medina on the 27th of Rajab, it's not with the intention of going to Kufa. Imam never says in Medina, I'm going to Kufa. Nor is it a fact to say that the Imam received letters in Medina from the people of Kufa. The death of Muawiyah and Imam leaving Medina is within 5 days. 22nd, 20th of Rajab, Muawiyah drops dead. 27th, Imam leaves Medina. What's likely is that the people of Kufa didn't even know that Muawiyah was dead at this point in time. Why? Because the messenger was sent secretly to make sure that control was handed to Muawiyah's son before anybody else knew what had happened. Imam leaves Medina with the intention, and he says, Inni akhrajtu, I am leaving, لِإِصْلَاحِ أُمَّةِ جَدِّي, that I am leaving the city to repair and to fix the nation of my grandfather. This isn't where the conversation of Kufa comes about. Rather, the letters of the people of Kufa come to the Imam when he is in Mecca. And from Mecca, when the letters continue to come, is when the Imam takes Muslim ibn Aqeel, who was in his company, and says, go and investigate what is the condition of Kufa and if it's a right place for us to go to continue this process. Now understand something, the people of Kufa didn't just say, we're a little bit of an aside, we're okay? Everybody's all right? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Ya Ali. The letters of the people of Kufa are just as important as the fact is that they wrote letters. In these letters, they wrote that we are without a leader. Not to say we are against, they said we are against, but more importantly, they said we are without anyone over us. To the extent where we don't go pray Salat al-Jum'ah, we don't go pray in the masjid, we don't go and get involved. This Nu'man ibn Bashir, who is the governor over us, has nothing to do with us, and we have nothing to do with him. And we are basically leaderless and rudderless, and we require your attention and support to guide us to Hidayah the way your father guided us. This was the claim. The claim was not, we're ready to rise up and fight for you and that we want to overthrow the Khalifa. That was part of the claim, but the primary claim was that there's no guidance. And they asked for guidance. And the claim was sent that investigate and determine if they really need guidance and if what they're saying is true, or are they simply looking to be revolutionaries and cause trouble and create a civil war. When Muslim goes and he presents the letter of Imam Hussain in his letter writes everything we need to know about Muslim ibn Aqeel. He says, إِنِّي بَعِثْتُ إِلَيْكُمْ أَخِي ibn عَمِّي وَثِقَةِ أَهْلِ بَيْتِ Muslim ibn Aqeel. If an Imam makes this statement about anybody, I don't need to know anything else about this person. This one statement that is authentic in history is more than enough to know everything about Muslim ibn Aqeel. You see, the statement the Imam is making is he's appointing him the Safir, the ambassador. In history, Ahlul Bayt have appointed ambassadors. This is true. But there's two types of ambassadors. One is known as Safir Khas, and the other is known as Safir Am. Now, hearing these terms, you think Khas is the special one, right? No. Safir Khas is the one who's appointed to do one Khas particular task. You're appointed by the Imam as his ambassador to hand this letter over, to collect this item, to return this item, and your authority ends upon the collecting of that item, giving of that item, saying this phrase, whatever it is. Safir Khas, there were many. The Imam would at times appoint someone to go and perform a task, and this task is the only authority he has. The special one is Safir Am. Safir Am means that anything this ambassador does is as if the Imam did it himself. Meaning the character you have to portray is that your action mirrors the action of the Imam in everything. When the Imam appoints this person and says, Yaduhu yadi, his hand is my hand, he's explaining and showing that this Muslim is not sent for one task, but whatever you see in this Muslim is what you would see from me. And he elaborates this through these three statements. هذا أخي ابن عمي وثقة أهل بيتي. He says, this is my brother. He does not mean this is my brother like this is my blood. He means it the way Rasulullah meant it about Amir al-Mu'mineen. Let me explain. There was a lady who once raised this question, and she says, what kind of prophet do you have? I said, what do you mean? She says, on one minute he's saying, this is my brother, and the next minute he's marrying his daughter to him. I said, no, you didn't understand. When Rasulullah says to Amir al-Mu'mineen, هَذَا أَخِي, it doesn't mean that this is my blood. It means that this is my brother in character. What I possess in goodness, my brother possesses with me. In the same context, Imam Hussain is saying this about Muslim ibn Aqeel, that the goodness in me, هَذَا أَخِي, is that the goodness in me is paralleled in my brother, the same way the goodness of Rasulullah was paralleled in Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. Then he says, هَذَا ibn Ammi, this is the son of my uncle, meaning this is my close blood relation. There would be no point, if the intention of Akhi was blood relation, there would be no point in mentioning the blood relation the two share. So this is how we know that the blood relation, هَذَا ibn Ammi, is his description of saying, this is truly my cousin, the son of my uncle, who is standing in front of you, and my blood is standing in front of you. And then he says, وَهَذَا ثِقَةِ أَهْلِ بَيْتِ, this is the trustworthy one of my Ahlul Bayt. I could know nothing about Muslim ibn Aqeel, but this one statement of Imam Hussain tells me everything about him. That he's not just the warrior, because the Ahlul Bayt were warriors on one side, but he's also the intellectual. He's also the pious one who prays. He is also the one who fasts and observes the laws of Allah. That whatever attribute I wanted to see in the Ahlul Bayt, I see in Muslim ibn Aqeel. So this is the description that we get of this personality to understand the azamat and the greatness of the status that he possessed, that while his biography may be missing, it's not missing because there was some shortcoming in him prior to this moment. It's missing because when you have two lights, you look at the sun, not the stars. So if you have Muslim who is a star, and you have the Imam who is the sun, when I see the sun, I don't see the star. Thus the point that's being made to say that this is that azim of a personality. There's even a point of discrepancy that happens in this description that actually creates a debate. You guys are okay? I need another 15 minutes. You guys are okay? صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. يا علي يا علي يا علي. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. This statement that Imam makes, هذا ثقة أهل بيتي, this is the trustworthy of my Ahl Bayt. Those who look at history brought a comparison. And they said, does this mean that the status of this Muslim is greater than Abu al-Fadl? Because Imam never said this for Hazrat Abbas. This is a mistake. There is no comparison between these two. The significance of the Imam's statement is not to compare Muslim ibn Aqeel to one of the other members of Ahlul Bayt. Rather, it's the purpose of this statement is to explain to Ahle Kufa who is standing in front of them. The context is wrong. The Imam is not drawing a biography. He's giving an explanation to show the people of Kufa the authority has placed in front of them, not compare the authorities I could have or I should have or I did. He's explaining this is the authority in front of you, that respect him as you would respect me. Follow him the way you would follow me. This attribute that's given to Muslim ibn Aqeel is one of the unique and special attributes, and the only other way that we know his uniqueness and status is the aspect of understanding his family life in the context of who is he married to. The wife of Muslim ibn Aqeel is Ruqayya bint Ali. Imam Ali marries this Muslim ibn Aqeel to his daughter. And that this is one of the daughters of his house. Muslim has a total of 7 children. There's only one wife noted for him and 7 children, 5 sons and 2 daughters. Of the 2 daughters, the most famous of them is a daughter who's known by either Humayda or Hamida. This daughter of Muslim is the one that the description comes for as saying that she was a similar age to the daughters of Imam Hussain and had a special relationship with Abu Abdullah. And the 5 sons that are mentioned. And later this month comes the Shahadat of Tiflan Muslim as well too. One of the mistakes that's made is to say that when Muslim went to Kufa, he took his 2 sons with him. No. All of these children were with their mother, with Imam Hussain, who was their uncle, who was their mamu, in Karbala. Why then were these 2 children separated? For that we look at what our 4th Imam described. He says, after the murder of my father, after the Shahadat of Abu Abdullah, when they attacked the tents, the children of the Ahlul Bayt were spread in the field of Karbala, the way you take a tasbih and it breaks and the beads spread in the field of Karbala. Now these 2 boys were captured separately, and then from their capture is when they went to Kufa separately, and they were arrested separately and not kept with the rest of the caravan. And which is why their shahadat is different than the rest of the Sibaya and the rest of the women from Karbala. The other sons of Hazrat Muslim are actually present in the field of Karbala, and their shahadat is noted in the field of Karbala. One narration that comes to us about the sons of Muslim and their bravery is from Mukhtar himself. When Mukhtar captures the murderers and captures those who are present in the field of Karbala from the army of Umar Saad, one that he captures, he asks him, who are you and what did you do? And he says, I am one of the soldiers of Umar Saad, and he gives his name, which slips my mind at the moment. And he says, I killed the son of Muslim. Abdullah ibn Muslim, who was the oldest of the sons of Muslim, stepped into the battlefield. And they describe and say the shabahat between him and Akbar is close. And then this Abdullah ibn Muslim, in some narrations, in some of the makatil, say that the first of the Banu Hashim to fight was this Abdullah. And that when he fought, he killed 99 of the army of Umar Saad. Mukhtar says, this man in front of me, he says, when I saw this young man that no one could stand in front of him, I stood from afar and began to shoot arrows at him. When eventually I found my mark, I struck him to where the arrow was coming to him, and he raised his hand to block it, and I pinned his hand to his head. And then he called out to me, and as he called out to me, I shot a second arrow that pierced his chest, and the boy died in the field. They say that in the court of Mukhtar, they started to raise their voices at the killing of this youth in this fashion, and then he proceeded further. He said, when I went to find my arrow, I pulled one from his chest. And then I went to remove the arrow from his forehead. And I moved it back and forth, but it would not release from his head. They said in the court of Mukhtar, they raised their hands to kill this one, and Mukhtar called out, no, this one, if he killed him by arrows, kill him by arrows. And this enemy of Allah was killed by arrows in the court of Mukhtar. These were the sons of Muslim and the bravery they represented and the attributes they represented. Which is why when we look at the life of Hazrat Muslim ibn Aqeel, what happens to him in Kufa is a completely different conversation about how Kufa was something that fell from his hands. But within Kufa is a lesson for us. And the events of Kufa are a lesson for us as those of this time. Why? Because we are calling to our Imam. And we are calling to our Imam the same way they were. That we don't have a leader, we don't have a guide. Yabna Rasulullah, come to us in assistance. Allah will delay the dhuhr until we have adopted that characteristic that doesn't repeat what happened in Kufa. What happened in Kufa? 18,000 men took bay'ah at the hand of Muslim in less than 2 months. Almost immediately. The day that Muslim entered into the city of Kufa is the 5th of Shawwal. He left Imam Hussain on the 15th of Ramadan and reached to the city of Kufa 20 days later. The journey is not a 20-day journey, but there's a discussion about this journey that's debated, but essentially he goes to Medina, does his ziyarah, and then goes to Kufa. 5th of Shawwal, he enters into the city of Kufa. Till today, if you go to the city of Kufa on the 5th of Shawwal, you will find that there are celebrations held in Kufa still. That this was the day that the Safir of Imam Hussain came to us. Less than 2 months, less than that, he has collected 18,000 men under his authority, and in the period of 1 day, he loses them all. 1 day. The attack of Ubaydullah is very articulate and very particular, but what he essentially did was created fear in the hearts of people. The fear that he created was to say that when these 18,000 men gathered in front of Dar al-Imara, in front of the governor's palace, he didn't talk to those 18,000 men. He sent his few ambassadors that he had to each of the mahalla, each of the neighborhoods where those men came from, and planted a flag. And said that the caller would call out in each of these areas that the Khalifa is sending his army. And when the army of Sham comes, anyone who stands against the governor of the Khalifa will be killed, his wealth will be taken, and his family will be enslaved. But O people of Kufa, anyone who takes sanctuary under this flag and returns to his house while this flag is still planted, they will be safe. So what happens? The men aren't there to hear this. It's the women and children. It's the elderly. And they start going to their men who are standing in the army with Muslim, and they say, Muslim has 18,000 men. What do you need to sacrifice your life for? He doesn't need you. Come home. Who will take care of us if you die? Who will provide for us if you're not here? And those 18,000 began to dwindle until eventually they became 12,000, 10,000, 8,000. And the conversation changed. Muslim has only 8,000 men. You're all going to die. Why are you going to leave us without someone to take care of us? Why are you going to let yourself die foolishly where there's no chance of success? Come home. To where in the period of that 1 day, 18,000 men left the support of the one who represented Imam Hussain. They describe and say that Muslim ibn Aqeel, after Salat al-Isha, turned around inside of Masjid Kufa. And those of you who have seen Masjid Kufa, may Allah give us all tawfiq to visit Hazrat Muslims, see this masjid. Only one old man was standing there. And Muslim ibn Aqeel goes, are you the only one left to support me? Even this old man says, no, I don't support you. I'm only here because I'm blind and I can't find my stick. And Muslim leaves Masjid Kufa alone. Some question the fact that why didn't Muslim return back to the houses of the supporters? Ubaidullah was not a foolish man. As soon as he broke the support of Hazrat Muslim, he put his police in front of each of the doors of the supporters of Ahlul Bayt. So that if Muslim came back to that house, he would be immediately arrested. And then the call came out that no one to remain on the streets. If you are seen on the streets after this moment, after the darkness falls, your blood shall be spilt. Do not invite anyone in your houses. Do not leave your houses. If you are seen in the wrong neighborhood, you will be killed. They describe and say that in these days when he put on this curfew before tonight, that it so happened during this curfew, a man from outside of Kufa came into Kufa and was walking through the streets, and the police saw him. And they grabbed him and took him to Ubaidullah. And Ubaidullah said, didn't you hear I put a curfew? You're not allowed to walk around like this. He says, I'm not from Kufa. I don't know anything about Kufa. I only know of one person in Kufa who owes me money and I've come to collect my money. I just want to collect my money and go home. I have nothing to do with any of this. Ubaidullah says, I believe him, but kill him anyway. I said, why? He said, because if they see there's no mercy for the one who tells the truth, no one will tell a lie. This was the environment that was created in Kufa, such that Muslim ibn Aqeel on this night, after Salat al-Isha, can't return to the houses of the mu'mineen, and no one will give him security. And he wanders through the streets in this night. Remember, it's after Salat al-Isha, until he stops at a doorstop. You see, this point is important to note. Sometimes we wonder and we say, I don't have the chance to fight for the Imam. If he would give me a sword, I would show my loyalty and my love for Ahlul Bayt. Tawa didn't have a sword. Tawa was an old woman. But this old woman forever joined her name to Ali Muhammad. Why? Because when everybody was afraid for themselves, when everybody only thought about nafsi, nafsi, that when Muslim ibn Aqeel sits at her doorstep and she opens the door and she says, oh stranger, it is dangerous for you to sit here. Why? If you're seen at my house, they'll kill me. Why are you sitting here? He says, give me some water if you have some water. She gives Hazrat Muslim water. He drinks. She says, go back to your family. Go back to your relatives. Why? Because there's no place in Kufa safe if you're not with your family right now. He says, if I had a family here, I would go to them. But I am a stranger in this place. See the similitude between Abu Abdullah and Muslim? She says, who are you that you're a stranger in this place? He says, I am the Safir of Hussain. I am Muslim ibn Aqeel. She says, you are the representative of my master. Come into my house. This Tawa, for ignoring what everyone else looked at as their primary responsibility of safety and preferring the Imam over herself, for the rest of history, she has no nobility. We don't know her family. We don't know anything. But that you can mention the name of Ahlul Bayt without the name of Tawa. This is the lesson for us. When it comes to the Ahlul Bayt, prefer them to yourself. And Allah will raise you in ways you can't imagine. She gives safety to this man in her house. She gives safety to the Safir of the Imam, presents him with food and everything. Muslim doesn't eat anything and spends this night in worship until her son comes and finds that there's a stranger in his house, and he goes to report that the stranger, the Safir, the Amir is looking for is in my house. When the morning comes that the soldiers come to this house, Muslim exits this house And Tawa doesn't lift a sword, yet she is one who is commemorated and remembered in this day. The battle of Muslim ibn Aqeel in the streets of Kufa is an interesting point of discussion. There are a few points to this. One that says that Muslim fought in the streets of Kufa until eventually they tricked him, either by trapping him in a hole or by promising him safety. And in this way, Muslim was captured. This doesn't fit. Why? The companions of Imam Hussain were not normal people. One of the ways of understanding what the companions of Imam Hussain were is that when you look at what Muslim ibn Awsaja says on the night of Ashura, the night before Ashur, Shab-e Ashur. When Imam Hussain says, "Oh my companions, these people are thirsty for my blood, not yours. Each of you take one of my family members and leave this place. And no one will follow you, no one will bother you." Muslim ibn Awsaja is the one who stands up and he says, "Oh Aba Abdullah, if we were killed 1,000 times, we would ask to be raised again to defend you." He says, "We will not rest until we break our spears in their chests. We will not rest until we hit them with our swords. Oh Imam Hussain, we love you so much that if we didn't have swords, we would find rocks to kill your enemies." You know why that's important? Who has a religious responsibility that if one comes to you with a sword and you're without defense, to fight him? The companions and lovers of Ahlul Bayt were such that there's no excuse that they would leave the Ahlul Bayt by. If I have a weapon, I don't have a weapon. Yabna Rasulullah, I am for you. Until our mentality comes to this, we'll never be able to support the Imam. If the Imam came tomorrow, how many would say, "I have a mortgage, I have small children, who's going to take care of the bills?" When that mentality breaks, and the focus is that when the Imam needs me, there is nothing else that takes a priority, that's when we become the companions of Ahlul Bayt. This is why when they describe Muslim as being tricked, that the idea that he gave up his freedom and was led by a false oath that he would be given aman and safety, no. That he was someone who was tricked and trapped in a hole, this was one of the intellectuals. This is the one who represented the intellect of Ahlul Bayt. How could he be tricked so simply? Rather, what you see is the description of the battle of Muslim ibn Aqeel is such to say that they could not beat him in the streets, so they kept calling for more support until they went to Ubaydullah after sending 60 soldiers, and they said, "We still can't beat him, send us more soldiers." And Ubaydullah replies, he says, "I sent you after one man, and you need more than 60, more than 40. And they say, "You sent us after one of the lions of Banu Hashim. You did not send us after a salesman, a businessman of Kufa." They describe and say that when he was surrounded and fought by all sides, they would stand on the rooftops to attack him and throw stones at him because they could not face him one-on-one. They encircled him and they entrapped him. Look at Aba Abdullah when he was alone in Karbala fighting. They describe and say the fighting of Hussain was such that no man could face him one-on-one. So then Mal'oon Shimr gave us instruction and we made circles around him. The closest would fight with swords, then they would fight with spears, then they would fight with arrows, and the one who had nothing would throw stones at Hussain ibn Ali alone in the middle. So was the condition of Muslim who stood there alone. They describe, "We fought Muslim until he came to the moment of death." They describe and say, "We cut his face in such a way that his lips had come apart, and after that, in the moments of death is when we captured him." Look at Abu Abdullah, that he fought until that moment that they said, "We don't know if Hussain is alive or if he has died." It was in that moment Mal'oon Shimr said, "Mention the name of Zainab." Muslim ibn Aqeel in this condition at the verge of death is taken to Dar al-Imara. He asks for water in this moment. The same way they describe and say in Abu Abdullah in his final moments, said, "Oh Shimr, if you have intended to kill me, then give me water." Shimr said, "I shall never give you water." And Abu Abdullah says, "Then you are that evil dog I have seen in my dream that will kill me." In this similar fashion, Muslim asks for water. The first time it is bought from him, his cut face bleeds into the cup. Look at the attribute of the akhlaq and the knowledge of Muslim, that he sees this water and his thirst, yet he sees the water has become najis. Who in that moment of death would acknowledge this najasat shall not enter my body? Muslim throws it away. They bring it again. The teeth of Muslim fall from his mouth into the water. He says, "I shall die thirsty then." This is why he is one of those, "Man qadha nahbahu wa minhum man yantadhir." He has made his fulfillment of his oath that he dies thirsty like Abu Abdullah. They say, "We took him in front of Ubaidullah." Ubaidullah then turned and said that, "You don't say salam to me. I am the Amir." Muslim replies that Hussain is my Amir, and what a great Amir is Hussain. They say, "Then you are to die." Muslim says, "If I am to die, then let me give a wasiyah." His wasiyah consists of 3 statements. He says, "I want for you to take my horse and sell it to bury me properly. I have some debts in the city, sell my armor and fulfill my debts. And then finally, give the message of what has happened to me to Abu Abdullah." They say, "We shall not fulfill these oaths for you." The same way Abu Abdullah, when he was alone in Karbala, he too made some wasiyah. When he stood there alone and they said, "We saw Hussain ibn Ali after his family was killed. We saw an old man bent forward on his horse." He said, "I have some conditions if you have decided to kill me. 1, give me some water." They said, "Hussain, we will never give you water." He says, 2, then go and let my women and children go free. They said, "Oh Hussain, after you have troubled us, we will never let them go free." He says, then 3, I put on you the condition that fight me fairly 1-to-1. They fought Abu Abdullah until they broke this condition as well too, because he was one that could not be overcome. In that same context, the requests of Muslim, all 3 were violated. They said, "We will not tell Hussain, we will not fulfill your debt, and we will not bury you with respect." This is why you listen to the description. Muslim ibn Aqeel, Ubaidullah says, "I shall have you killed in a way no one has been killed before." They take him to the top of the palace. He turns to the direction of Abu Abdullah, sends his salam to his imam. They cut the neck of Muslim. They throw his body from Dar al-Imara. Then they tie his feet with a rope, drag him through the streets of Kufa. When the messenger finally comes to Imam Hussain, they describe and say that a messenger, when a rider would come to an encampment, they would have a flag that would indicate that this is a news bearer, so that he would be welcome into the encampment. When this news bearer came to see Abu Abdullah, all of the men came forward to ask, "Bashir, give us news. What do you bring of news?" He said, "I have a message only for Hussain ibn Ali." Imam Hussain says, "The message for me is the same for them. Tell them there is nothing hidden." He says, "I did not leave Kufa until I saw the body of Muslim dragged through the streets." The messenger would narrate, "I saw a small girl pick up sand and put it in her hair." The messenger calls out, "Child, what are you doing?" "This is what orphans do." They would explain, "You gave the news of the death of a Muslim to his daughter Hamida." Now you understand why Abu Abdullah would take this small child, sit her in his lap, caress her head. He would clean the dirt from her hair. "Oh Hamida, from today I am your father, and these are your sisters, and you are from my children now, and you are not an orphan. Do not behave as an orphan as long as Hussain is left." This is the difference between Muslim and Abu Abdullah. Muslim made his sacrifice authentic, but Imam Hussain persisted to protect the children of Muslim. Hi Karbala, there was Hussain, and after Hussain, There was no protection for the children of Hussain. They were the ones who were struck after the Shahadat of their father. They were the ones whose clothes were burned after the Shahadat of their father. Remember that daughter of Abu Abdullah, who after the murder of her father, her clothes are on fire. The Mu'arrikh says, I wanted to put it out. She said, we would sooner burn than have someone touch us. Oh Sheikh, are you a Muslim? Why does this child ask, are you a Muslim? Because she could not imagine that those who loved Rasulullah would do this to the children of Rasulullah. He says, I am a Muslim. She says, have you read the Quran? That maybe these were those ignorant ones who did not know the message of Islam. He says, I have read the Quran. She asks, have you read where it says, فَأَمَّا الْيَتِيمَ فَلَا تَقْهَرْ, that when you meet an orphan, do not harm them. وَأَمَّا السَّائِلَ فَلَا تَنْهَرْ, then the questioner, do not turn them away. He says, I have read this. She says, then, oh Sheikh, I am an orphan and I have a question. Point me to Najaf, point me to my grandfather. I have to complain what they did to me, what they did to my father, and what they did to our family. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون رضا بقضائه وتسليما لأمره ندعوك باسمك العظيم الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم. 10 times we call out, tears in our eyes. Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Mahmud bihaqqi Muhammad, Ya A'la bihaqqi Ali, Ya Fatir as-samawat bihaqqi Fatima, Ya Muhsin bihaqqi al-Hasan, Ya Qadim al-Ahsan bihaqqi al-Hussain. Oh Allah, accept this small ibadat from us. Ya Allah, give the thawab of this majlis, the marhumin of tonight's sponsors, and all of our marhumin. Ya Allah, we have gathered here with hajat. By the request of Babul Hawa'ij, that is Muslim Ibne Aqeel, fulfill our hajat. There are those amongst our families, our communities, the mu'mineen who are suffering through sickness and disease. Ya Allah, give shafa'at to the mu'mineen wherever they are. Ya Allah, those who are suffering through strife and insecurity around this world, give aman and safety to the mu'mineen wherever they may be. Oh Allah, keep our children on the upright path of Islam. Ya Allah, give us and our families the tawfiq to be the upright supporters of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. Oh Allah, hasten the reappearance of the son of Zahra. Make us and our families from the supporters of the Imam of our time. Entitle us to the ziyarat of Abu Abdullah in this world and the shafa of Abu Abdullah in the hereafter. Matim Hussain.
Muslim ka khoon مسلمان بہاتے ہیں مسلم کا خون ہائے مسلمان بہاتے ہیں زہرا و مصطفیٰ و علی کو رلاتے ہیں مسلم کا خون ہائے مسلمان بہاتے ہیں مشکل کشا ہو جس کا چچا اس کو اہل شام مشکل کشا ہو جس کا چچا اس کو اہل شام بے جرم ہائے توق و سلاسل پہناتے ہیں، مسلم کا خون ہائے مسلمان بہاتے ہیں، تھرا رہا ہے قبر میں لاشا عقیل کا، تھرا رہا ہے قبر میں لاشا عقیل کا، مسلم کو بام پر سے زمین پر گراتے ہیں، مسلم کا خون ہائے مسلمان بہاتے ہیں، مسلم کی بیٹی کہتی ہے رو کر حسین سے، مسلم کی بیٹی کہتی ہے رو کر حسین سے، اے امّو جان بابا بہت یاد آتے ہیں، مسلم کا خون ہائے مسلمان بہاتے ہیں، زہراؤ مصطفیٰ علی کو رلاتے ہیں، مسلم کا خون ہائے مسلمان بہاتے ہیں، یا حسین
مسلم نہیں رہا، مسلم نہیں رہا، بولے شہ ہدا اے میرے باوفا، مسلم نہیں رہا، زینب کو یہ خبر دینا کہ اب میرا مسلم نہیں رہا، بولے شہ ہدا اے میرے باوفا، مسلم نہیں رہا، بولے شہ ہدا اے میرے باوفا، مسلم نہیں رہا، زینب کو یہ خبر دینا کہ اب میرا مسلم نہیں رہا، بولے شہ ہدا اے میرے باوفا، مسلم پردیس آ کے باپ سے بچے ہوئے جدا، باغی کو مار ڈالو یہی سب کا شور تھا، بچوں میں خوف تھا سن سن کے یہ صدا، مسلم نے رہا بولے شہ ہدا، مسلم نہیں رہا بولے شہ مسلم نہیں رہا، ایک بے وطن کی لاش کو رسی سے باندھ کے گلیوں میں کھینچتے ہوئے پتھر ہے مارتے، کوفے میں آج کیا اب کوئی بھی بھلا مسلم نہیں رہا بولے شہ ہدا، اے میرے باوفا مسلم نہیں رہا بولے شہ ہاتھوں کو رکھ کے سر پہ یتیموں کے شاہ نے، میں ہوں تمہارے ساتھ یہ رو رو کے کہتے تھے، جب شاہ نے کہا ماتم ہوا بپا مسلم نہیں رہا بولے شہ ہدا، اے میرے باوفا مسلم نہیں رہا بولے شہ ہدا، اے میرے باوفا مسلم نہیں رہا، قاصد کو آتا دیکھ کے بولے شہ ہدا، مسلم کا حال کیسا ہے بتلاؤ تو ذرا، سر خم کیا کہا یا شاہ کربلا مسلم نہیں رہا بولے شہ ہدا، اے میرے باوفا مسلم نہیں رہا بولے شہ ہدا، اے میرے باوفا مسلم نہیں رہا، پیغام جب یہ آیا شہ مشرقین کو، اونچائی سے گرایا سفیر حسین کو، رو رو کے بارہا پڑھتے تھے مرثیہ مسلم نہیں رہا بولے شہ ہدا، مسلم نہیں رہا بولے شہ ہدا، اے میرے باوفا مسلم نہیں رہا، اعلان ہو رہا تھا کہ باغی پکڑ لیا، حاکم کے حکم سے جدا سے اس کا کر دیا، غش طاری ہو گیا توا نے جب سنا مسلم نہیں رہا بولے شہ اے میرے با وفا ہی رہا بولے شہ مسلم زہرا یہ رو کے کہتی تھی مسلم کی لاش پہ امت خوشی مناتی ہے روتا ہے میرا گھر ایک عید پہ علی ایک عید پہ میرا مسلم نہیں رہا بولے خدا اے میرے با وفا زینب کو یہ خبر دینا کہ اب میرا مسلم نہیں رہا بولے شہ خدا اے میرے با وفا مسلم نہیں رہا
مسلم کا خون ہائے مسلمان بہاتے ہیں مسلم کا خون ہائے مسلمان بہاتے ہیں مسلم کا خون ہائے مسلمان بہاتے ہیں زہرا و مصطفیٰ و علی کو رلاتے ہیں مسلم کا خون ہائے مسلمان بہاتے ہیں مسلم کا خون ہائے مسلمان بہاتے ہیں مشکل کشا ہو جس کا چچا اس کو اہل شام مشکل کشا ہو جس کا چچا اس کو اہل شام مشکل کشا ہو جس کا چچا اس کو اہل شام بے جرم ہائے تو کو سلاسل پہناتے ہیں مسلم کا خون ہائے مسلمان بہاتے ہیں مسلم کا خون ہائے مسلمان بہاتے ہیں دھڑا رہا ہے قبر میں لاشا عقیل کا دھڑا رہا ہے قبر میں لاشا عقیل کا دھڑا رہا ہے قبر میں لاشا عقیل کا مسلم کو بام پر سے زمین پر گراتے ہیں مسلم کا خون ہائے مسلمان بہاتے ہیں مسلم کا خون ہائے مسلمان بہاتے ہیں مسلم کی بیٹی کہتی ہے رو کر حسین سے مسلم کی بیٹی کہتی ہے رو کر حسین سے مسلم کی بیٹی کہتی ہے رو کر حسین سے اے عمو جان بابا بہت یاد آتے ہیں مسلم کا خون ہائے مسلمان بہاتے ہیں مسلم کا خون ہائے مسلمان بہاتے ہیں افسوس کربلا میں سکینہ کو اہل شام افسوس کربلا میں سکینہ کو اہل شام
افسوس کربلا میں سکینہ کو اہل شام روئی تو اور گھڑکیاں دے کر ڈراتے ہیں مسلم کا خون ہائے مسلمان بہاتے ہیں مسلم
کا خون ہائے مسلمان بہاتے ہیں
وہ یوں دلاسا دیتے ہیں بنتے حسین کو
وہ یوں دلاسا دیتے ہیں بنتے حسین کو
وہ یوں دلاسا دیتے ہیں بنتے حسین کو سرشاہ کا یتیم کو لا کر دکھاتے ہیں
مسلم
کا خون ہائے مسلمان بہاتے ہیں زہرا مصطفیٰ و علی کو رلاتے ہیں
حسین 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 مولا حسین مولا حسین 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 مولا
حسین 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 السلام علیکہ یا ابا عبداللہ السلام علیکہ یا ابن رسول اللہ السلام علیکہ یا ابن امیر المومنین و ابن سید الوسین السلام علیکہ یا ابن فاطمۃ الزہراء سیدۃ نساء العالمین السلام علی الحسین وعلی علی ابن الحسین وعلی اولاد الحسین وعلی اصحاب الحسین السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ السلام علیکہ یا ابو الفضل العباس ابن امیر المومنین و قاسم ابن الحسن و مسلم ابن عقیل و ہانی ابن عروہ و حبیب ابن مظاہر والحر الشہید ریاحی السلام علیکم جمیعاً شہدائے کربلا و اسیران کربلا و رحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ السلام علیکہ یا غریب الغرباء السلام علیکہ یا معین الضعفاء والفقراء السلام علیکہ یا مغیث الشیعۃ والزوار فی یوم الجزاء السلطان یا ابو الحسن یا علی ابن موسیٰ الرضا روحی و جسمی لک الفداء ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ السلام علیکہ یا مولا یا صاحب العصر والزمان الامان 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 السلام علیکہ یا خلیفۃ الرحمن السلام علیکہ یا شریک القرآن السلام علیکہ یا مظہر الایمان السلام علیکہ یا امام الانس والجان عجل اللہ تعالی فرجک وسهل اللہ تعالی مخرجک وظہورک وجعلنا من آوانک وانصارک رحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ صلوات اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم اللہم کل ولیک الحجت ابن الحسن صلواتک علیہ وعلی آبائہ فی هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.